Welcome back to our sermon. Today we meet for the second time, as I think most of you have seen last time as well. And first of all, I want to appreciate all the effort that has gone into organizing today's event and all the merits, all the rendering the service to the Swami Nahansa, that offering the meal in the morning or the breakfast with which I can deliver the sermon. And it also brought me to one point that I wanted to share with you, and I also shared it to you last time. Whenever you are offering something to a monk or someone, there's one word that my teacher used last week, which is don't try to offer this to the monk itself only. Think about the monk as a symbol for a mission. I think that's a good way to see it. There's a mission behind the person, and that mission is much bigger than the person itself, right? So all of us at the monastery, we are also just part of a mission, and that mission is called Mahasangha. Mahasangha is the mission that even the Buddha was only a part of, right? It is to free sentient beings from suffering, to heal, to healing hearts and mending minds. That is that's the mission of Sambuddhasasana, or the mission of Mahasangha. So it is for that purpose that you should do any offerings, because that purpose will start to. That's very important. It's not so much about who you offer it to, and how much, and whether you do it personally or not. Yesterday we had a discussion in the monastery, and someone asked me about this question, because sometimes people think that you can only gain merits if you have done something, right? If you have been the one who offered the spoon and offered the glass of water, who offered the betel leaf, who offered the bouquet of flowers, the arrangement of flowers. So that is something that people believe sometimes, but it is not so, right? So, for example, the gentleman, he has offered this betel leaf, as it is a good custom to start the sermon. Now he acquired merits to that. Actually, I cannot really say whether he acquired merits to that or not, because the deed itself is not a merit in itself, because I can't look into his mind, right? So it's the intention ultimately in that mind that creates the merit. The Buddha always said, "Cetanaham bhikkhave kamma vadami." So in the same way, I can only see the body, and we all can only see the body. So we might think he's doing that with so much devotion, and I very much like to think so, but can I really be sure? I cannot really be sure, right? Because that is also something that has to do with our mind. We will find this out later more and more, that we all live in our own worlds. So as much as I like to feel as much as we like to think we can feel other people's emotions, that is actually not the case. We always create our own emotions, and we create our own interpretations of what others think about us and why and so on. But that's a point for later. But in terms of doing merits, one thing is to do, and if you have a chance to do, you might as well do it, because somebody has to do it, and it's good. But if you can't do, or if you see someone else doing, you can still earn merits by simply rejoicing in that. So some of you might already know that anyways, but I think it's always good to always keep this point in mind. Because something that in our monastery, when we become a monk and when we practice the Dhamma for some time, we might have the opportunity, it's not guaranteed, to have a student. For example, recently I had the opportunity from my teachers who they decided to give me a student, that I have to care for them, for this person. So he's also actually from Germany, and he came to our monastery because he wants to attain Nibbāna and help the world. And now I have to explain him all the things that we are doing, and doing merits might be, or is one of the things. And one thing we regularly discuss is seeing a merit as a merit, right? When you see a merit as a merit means that you see that there is a merit happening. You don't focus on who's doing that merit, because it's the merit that's important. So when you see the offering of something, then that is something you can rejoice on that. And that earns you a lot of merits as well, right? You can see, especially if you have an understanding about for what it might have been given, right? So in this case, if you understand more and more the virtues and the infinite qualities of Mahasangha, or the Buddha, Dhamma and the Sangha, your merit power actually increases. That's why an anagami person is said to be the person who can acquire the most amount of merits, because his mind is always this side of an arahant. He is the most purest. This is the most purest kind of a mind, and the purity of mind, the purity of your mind, the moment you do the deed, determines the merits that you can acquire with that, right? So your mindset is really important when you offer something, because it's one part of the story, and the second part of the story is the purity of the receiving party, right? So in this case, if you have offered it to me as a person, then your merit would be determined by whether I practice the path or not, and what my mental state is, which you might not really necessarily have any idea about. I mean, you only saw me 10 minutes before the sermon, or 5 minutes, or just 1 minute. So you cannot really know. I might be a good faker, right? I can fake a lot and walk very calmly, but you don't know what I'm doing the rest of my time. But if you give it for the Mahasangha, then what you're doing is, independent of the person there, you believe in a mission. And that mission is not a religious mission in a certain way, because it has nothing to do with Buddhism as such. We can say it's a mission for the truth. As I said last time, the truth is something which you can't put a religion to that. The truth is always universally true, and I believe that this is something way beyond the religion. So it is one way to look at it from this point of view, which I like to think like that. It's something I do for the truth. In that same way, I would say that now, today, I'm able to celebrate a Buddha Puja and see the purity of the truth behind the words and the customs, and have joy and gain merits from the Buddha Puja just as much as I could participate in other kinds of ritual, maybe in my home country, and see where all of this is connected, ultimately, at the end of the day, towards the truth which unites us all, right? And that is what me personally I'm interested in. And it is so that the Buddha was also interested in that, and he strived really hard to find that. And we cannot even imagine how hard he has tried and how hard he has struggled to find this truth for us all to have a chance. I mean, just a chance to free ourselves from this, well, depends on what should I say? If I say samsara, now there's a frame to that. Yes, we can say samsara. We can say to vexation. Vexation was a word we learned last week. Right? Vexation, pressure, stress, worries, fear, sorrow, grief, and all sorts of emotions which are always part of our lives, right? whatever we do, we seem not to be able to do it fully without any stress. Right? That's why we like to say burning with passion. Right? When I was in my university times, I was so passionate about science, let's say. But then we say burning with passion, so that means isn't it also a fire that we carry around with ourselves when we do things? So at that time it was like that. Now I would still say that this path has become my passion, but this is the only path which you don't burn when you do it. Actually, you should stop burning. Without, the dedication and the determination and the energy and the motivation, these things don't go away, right? So the hard work stays, but the fire within, that's something that goes away. The fire within. Right? So it should be it should be something that happens to all of us when we walk along this path. It should happen to you as well. Whatever the things that you are doing in your lives, whatever the duties and responsibilities you have, little by little, if you correctly follow this path, you should be able to do and work and fulfill your responsibilities needlessly, up to the maximum perfect. I wouldn't say that you can be perfect in doing that. We all fail here and there, but you can try. But without burning. Or at least little by little burn less and less and less. Right? That is the gift. That should be the goal. Sometimes we think this path means, sometimes people think this path means inactivity. It means to rid ourselves from all the duties and responsibilities and live in the forest and meditate. Right? But that is far less so than people think. I can say about my life, yes, there is a time of my schedule which is dedicated towards sitting or walking and just meditating. Right? That is, let's say, 2 hours a day. That's currently what my teacher asks me to do. And 6 hours a day that I'm sleeping. So then still I have maybe 24 minus 8, so 16 hours to actually work and do things and be active, fulfill responsibilities. And I guess it will be very similar to you as well, right? So that's not the problem. It is a problem for the body, okay? So that you should see. If somebody is, so what I used to do when I was saving up for my long travel, my trip around the world, like a few years ago, after my university time, I had that dream to travel around the world. And by bicycle, and so I had to save some money. So the easiest way to do that was in my hometown. So I returned from the city where I had studied back to my parents. They were really happy. Finally, the sun was back and they could spend time, because it's actually a luxury for, let's say, a 25-year-old man or girl or woman in Germany to come back and live with the parents again. Usually, once you're out, when you're finishing your high school degree, you go on living your life. That's what the society has. That's the convention of society, right? So that is what people. That's how people see it. So even the parents would feel strange if the child would continue living at home after 18, 19 years. Then they would feel like everyone asks them, so what's wrong with your child? Why is he still at home? So then everybody feels he's a loser. He's not making it in life. Why is he still there? So then they have to justify themselves. And then that makes them uncomfortable. And of course, after a while, they start asking, my son, why are you still here? Why aren't you going to Why aren't you going for a higher education, something? Why aren't you going after something at least? Becoming someone, maybe a teacher, maybe engineer. So they were of course really happy to see me again, and for a few months I was there and I worked in delivering parcels and packages. Right? So I must say this was probably the time I had to work hardest physically than in my life before. Most of my life I had been lucky enough. I never had to work really hard physically. Okay, I always had to work for school and university, so it's always brain work, right? It's always, or office work, maybe similar to office work. You have to think and you have to memorize things like that. So it was a good experience for me because I started to appreciate how hard people work, and still they earned not even that much money. I mean, postman in Germany is not in the middle or upper class of society. It's we could say lower middle class or something like that. So, but he's working really hard, especially in Christmas times when there's so many orders, internet orders, and I remember a time that day there were nearly 200 packages, and usually it's 100. So I was totally overwhelmed with that. I couldn't finish it, even half of it, and I was so stressed because I wanted to do it perfectly, and I wanted to do a good job, and I wanted to finish it. So then, because of that, I was so stressed. And how easily can you do accidents? If you don't pay attention, you have to drive a big car around the streets, and you should not. You must be careful. You can't do an accident. But when you feel you have all these things to accomplish, and there's a whole full workload of a day that you have to finish, I was so stressed. So actually, accidents happened. Not big accidents, but maybe with a window, that side windows, you hit to a lantern or just a scratch or something like that. These things happen. So physical work, the Dhamma can take away from you. Physical work will, the exhaustion of physical work itself, the Dhamma can't take away from you. Most of it can't take away, right? Maybe there's a reason why you have to do that work. That might change, right? For example, if there's so many things that you want in your life, that means if there's so much money that you need for your life, to buy the things you like and enjoy the things you like or whatever, then you might of course have to work more physically. So if the reason changes, if the why changes, then also the what changes. So if you no longer need these things, or if that should ever happen, then of course the work might also reduce. But physical workload is always there. I mean, I can't say that Dhamma will give you a magic pill so that when you work 5 hours, 6 hours, 7 hours physically hard, you don't feel the pain of your body. The pain of your body will still be there, right? So that is one thing. But what the Dhamma can do is it can take away your mental pain. That happens alongside. Because we always feel a combination of both, whatever we do. So when I did that work in the car, with delivering parcels and letters, I was experiencing both. I was experiencing physical stress because some of these parcels, they were extremely heavy. 15 kilos, sometimes people were ordering flower vases or, I don't know, big machine. And some days, it was heavy. Or wine, 20 bottles of wine in a carton, and you have to carry that from the car to the door and so on. So the physical work and the mental work. So it is a very good way to analyze your life actually in terms of these two categories. what is the kind of burden that I'm carrying and where does it come from? And you will always be able to see either it's something called physical discomfort or it's something mental. The Dhamma is here only for the second part, mental. And most of the time, that is the biggest part, right? Most of the time, we don't suffer much physically, but mostly mental. Unless we are doing hard physical jobs, we could say, when we are working in an office or when we're teaching, when you're working in school or in a company, most of our discomfort is mental. Maybe problems with organizing something, making something work, scheduling something, coordinating something, problems with people, wanting to finish something, wanting to achieve a certain goal, wanting to achieve a certain maybe a position, could be one of the goals. These are all mental feelings, and the burden is always mental, right? So that's what we want to talk here. So, seeing merit as merit. So whenever the goodness around you that you see, somebody has offered this flower, this betel leaves. Somebody has offered the flowers. Somebody has laid the powder. And that is in a very culturally very clear context. But you can, if you go to the street, wouldn't you see a lot of goodness there as well? People helping each other or across the road, people telling each other to be careful about certain situations, people offering or giving something to another. I mean, these can be various things. And you can always rejoice in that. And that is something I learned along the way from my teachers. I didn't used to do that in my life before I found Dhamma. I mean, maybe yes, sometimes, but I didn't do it wholeheartedly. I didn't know the benefit of it. I didn't know why it is so important, right? Because for me, life at that time seemed so much simpler. Why do I have to do all this if happiness is in maybe a meal, if happiness is in my study, if happiness is in achieving a good exam result? What does it matter the way I talk to people? That's how I thought when I was in my when I did my bachelor's in physics. At that time, and I guess that's very normal these days, at least in Germany, it's like everybody wants to have a good education. Everybody wants to have a bachelor or a master's degree. And therefore everybody is competing with each other, whether you like it or not. And I guess it's the same here. It must be the same all over the world. People have to compete with each other. And yes, then there are some who like to do that because they are competitive. And then there are some who have no choice, but they have to do. And they don't like it, but what can we do? You have to go on and you have to accept it. So in these times, my I don't know how to call it, comrades, the people I studied with, they were boys and girls, very smart boys and girls, determined. They all came from their own schools in various places from Germany. They all had really good qualification, high school exams. But I couldn't appreciate these qualities at that time, because then there we were all together, and now, as special as I was back in my high school times, because everybody there used to see me as the smart one. That was my label, the smart one. So then, when you are among people who are all smart, then can you still feel special about being smart? I mean, can you still feel special about the same achievement, the same quality that you used to be? No, you can no longer be. Maybe then there are others who are better than you, so you're no longer special. And that is something that we don't like. Or I can't say we don't like, but there's something within us, something happening within us which doesn't like that. So I will call it the ego for the moment, yeah? The ego process. The ego process doesn't like to be normal, or just average, or just one of many, or it likes to be unique. And for that uniqueness, there is some amount of work and hard toiling and vexation that goes into this. So at that time, as much as I had struggled to have this specialness in my high school times, now in my university times I had to do it all over again. I had to have a good grade, and maybe the best grade in my high school, university exams. So again you have to strive really hard. And now you also have competitors. So there were people around me, some of them were my friends, and we used to support each other, but then there were some who I felt they are my enemies. Not really like big enemies, not like that. So we can't say enemy, but somebody you don't like. So whenever you talk to them, then they will tell you how they have solved this exercise, and then in your mind you always compare. Okay, he didn't do it in a smart way. He did it a very long way. This way is much better. He's doing it. He's not doing it well. So the ego likes to always see the negative sides of people that we don't like, and has this kind of a biased. It always has a bias, right? That is something I recently noticed more and more within myself, within others, because that's the good thing about practicing this path. You can study yourself just as much as others when you understand that we are all subject to the same disease, and we are subject to the same reality, which means we all have a mind, we all have a body. So you don't have to, it doesn't matter who you study, because you are actually studying the mind, not that person, right? That is also something you can take away for your life when you deal with people. Don't think about this as something that he or she is doing, because there are certain principles at work which apply to all of us, right? So when you see there's somebody who always likes to talk and he never likes to listen. I remember there were times, there were situations in my life when I was around people and they all like to talk. And everybody just waiting for the opportunity to talk. And then maybe people come together which identify themselves in a certain way. It might be because we are all from this club, because we are all from this belief, or because we are all from this family or from this place. And then they use this common thing to make themselves great and talk down others. It can happen. I mean, there are so many bad habits in our speech, right? When you pay attention to this around you, you will see that. And sometimes you see it in yourself. It's fine. It's totally fine. As long as we are all subject to this condition called ego, we will be able to see these things. And you can, instead of seeing that person doing something, you can study what's happening in that mind, right? Why does that mind feel the need to put himself into the spotlight? That might be something that we see. People do, or sometimes we feel the same. That we want attention. That is one of the things we all are looking for, to be acknowledged in certain ways. Right? So that is, and when you study that, now you can take a more rational approach to the situation, which will help you a lot. Because just as much as you can see a merit as a merit, you can also see a bad habit or a defilement as just that. It is a defilement. So I haven't explained what is a defilement, but we will go into it over time, over the sermons. The mind, there are two parts. The mind itself, which is a pure process, which is there just to perceive the world, and there is nothing wrong with that. That is also something we all have. And then there's what we call the ego process. It's also a process, what we call the defilement process. So ego process, defilement process, same thing, yeah? For the purpose of our discussion. So this defilement process is also a process, and therefore it is, when you're talking about examples like anger is a defilement, right? Anger, greed, and so on. Usually what we see he is greedy, she is greedy, she's angry, she's a very angry person. Now we have a personal relationship with that person, and we like or dislike her for the greed. But actually what we don't like is not what we are irritated about. Is it the person or is it greed? Or is it the person or is it anger? If there's a person who's very angry, actually what we are irritated with is anger, not her or him, right? Imagine this person would no longer be angry, or would not be angry, then we wouldn't have a problem with that. So in that same way, actually, understanding the Dhamma means you understand anger is just anger. It doesn't belong to anyone. It's a process. Therefore, there's no one to blame for anger. So, therefore you can have compassion with the person or with the mind, but see anger as anger, so you don't feel then there's no reason for us to feel superior than someone, nor is it we don't have any problem with the person, and even our own ego and these things won't arise when we see anger as anger. Now, if we see anger as anger in a person or in a mind, then all we can really feel is that I want to help this mind come out of anger by ways which I can do. Sometimes we can do something, so we can have compassion in that situation. We don't start to have problem with this person anymore. So just as much as you can see a merit as a merit, try to see the defilement as a defilement, not as someone's defilement. So I don't know how much sense this makes to all of you. Maybe these are not exactly very beginner points, but I don't know, maybe some of you have already experienced or listened to Dhamma before, and so I think it seems to make sense to most of you, so then it's fine. So it is important on this journey to never forget the fundamentals. The fundamentals is really what matters most. Sometimes I see people, they have listened to a lot of Dhamma and they know the theory really well. And simply spoken, it is the theory of cause and effect, right, that we are going to talk about. Yesterday there was a monk who told me he had talked with someone, and that person told him that every week he was meeting another monk, and when they were talking, that person said, he's always talking about cause and effect, can't he talk about something else for a change? Right? And then actually we were discussing the point that cause and effect is a vast topic. Yes, I understand. And sometimes maybe it gets over our head. That can happen. But if we really understand that, it will never be boring. If you really understand the Dhamma, it will never be boring. That is not to say that you will always think about the theory, because it is more important to actually practically apply these things than to thinking about the theory. These are not the same. But certainly it will never be boring. And anyways, so what I wanted to say is that the fundamentals, like for example what I discussed today was how we talk with people, sometimes whether we can listen to others, whether we feel the need to talk and what we talk about. Sometimes people talk about people who are not present in a disparaging way, in a negative way, because it makes them feel good in that moment. And sometimes when we feel that others have problems or others are doing something wrong, it can give us the feeling that we are good, right? So we all have our problems, but then when talking about another person, now I forget my own problems, and I feel that actually I'm so much better than this person. I'm not doing this nonsense. I'm not so angry as him, I'm not treating others like them or whatever the things. And that is also a way for our mind to feel good. A cheap way to feel good, I would say. Cheap way to feel good. Cheap way for the ego to feel good. So there's a reason why why I call this a cheap way to feel good, and that is because this feeling that we feel when that happens, which I call pleasure is not what you might think it is. Not what we usually think it is, right? We pay so much attention to this feeling and we worship this feeling so much. In today's time it is more obvious than ever how much we worship this feeling of pleasure and what people are willing to do for it, and how much people are willing to fight with others for that, right? So when you think about the world, the conflicts that you see and conflicts that we see in our daily lives, it is for that feeling people fight until they might even die. They will fight for that. But if they would only know what a trickery, what a foolishness this feeling is really, what really happens, they would never do that anymore, right? So, in my university times, as I said, I couldn't, when I spoke to certain people, I couldn't feel that, I couldn't rejoice in the goodness I saw, and the smartness maybe that I saw within that person, because he was a threat to me being special. Therefore, I couldn't do it, and also I didn't see the need to do that. Because I thought, as long as I can get what I want, why do I need to care? Right? It is only after the understanding the Dhamma, which means after I started to understand that getting what I want is never the answer to my problems, so as much as I do that more, it's going to be useless. In my university times, I thought, okay, if I have the best grades, or if I have a really good grades, and if I can excel academically, then I will be happy. So why do I need to care about how I treat others and how others are, what I could do for others? So I'm not saying that I was selfish person, I mean really selfish. No, I used to care about others, but deep down there was something like that. Right? But then again I did it for a few years, and luckily enough, when I started to listen to the Dhamma, I started to understand, oh my God, all these things I have done, trying to achieve happiness by excelling academically, why did I do that? For this excellence, for being a smart physicist or scientist, why did I want to become a smart scientist? Why did I want to win the Nobel Prize? Why do I want to become a professor? Why did I want to have very good grades in my university times? It was because I thought this will give me happiness, right? So this is the why. So there's always a difference between what and why, right? So I'll write this down. These two things you really have to distinguish. Because here we are going to talk about, try to talk about this point only, right? So that excelling academically was really good. That is even something, even the kids in our school, we want to teach them and improve their academical abilities and knowledge. But we have a different why now in our school, in our monastery, right? So, why did I want to excel academically? To find happiness. Then when I understood that that's not the way, that can't be the way, that will never achieve my goal, that was a turning point. Because I understood, okay, if that's not the way to do it, if even the Nobel Prize would not satisfy me, then I need to think about a different path. I need to think about a different path of living my life, right? And that's only when I started to see the value of, wholeheartedly, truly see the value of changing myself for the better, seeing the goodness in others, appreciating it, stopping the fight with other people, stopping at least my mental fight with them. If I wasn't fighting with them verbally or physically, which I never really did, but mentally I had fights with others. And that one I was now starting to see, I don't want to do that anymore. I should stop this. I should change this within this mind. This fighting is actually what keeps me away from happiness. This fighting with myself and others. So that's when I started to change my way of thinking. So then I started to force myself to see the goodness, even though my mind sometimes tells me there's no need to do that, right? Sometimes I found myself in situations where there are others and they don't seem to be a threat to me. And when you are in a position where you feel superior, then you don't feel that there's any problem for you. You don't feel sad, you don't feel vexed, you don't feel any vexation. You feel good. So then usually we enjoy this feeling when we see us higher than others. But still, in these situations, nowadays, I'm no longer proud, or I can't no longer enjoy that feeling. I start to see, then I force myself at least to see the goodness of the other person, even though my mind tells me, or this ego tells me, there's no need to do that. You don't have a problem. Why do you want to do that? Right? So, because I understand that there's no point in achieving anything if still I have this ego within me, if this process still is running. What's the point of doing that? What's the point of being famous? What's the point of people liking you? Ultimately, at the end of the day, all the things that people on the social media, what they're looking for, we should ask ourselves the question: is that going to be the real deal? Has that ever been the real deal for anyone? Maybe from my life I can see professionals in football who achieved so much. Maybe they won many World Cups. Still, mentally, some of them might also go to a psychiatrist or psychologist, look for mental counseling, look for spiritual ways to enhance their lives. I remember the Beatles in the 60s, when they had become popular around the world, when they sold their first LPs, and when everyone liked them, and when they had all the money in the world, when they could travel around the world wherever they wanted. After the initial phase, something happened with them. What happened was they started to go to India and do meditation or yoga or some kind of things. So clearly, that whatever they have achieved wasn't the real deal. And some of them said so themselves. Later on, I think, George Harrison or whoever said that was not what I had been looking for. I'm still looking. So when I saw that one of the interviews before he died, a few years before he died or something like that, I felt like this was a man who had achieved everything in his life which most people dream about, but he was still a man who was looking. So he was actually a broken man, in a certain way. He was a broken man, a broken soul. And I don't want to, and I hope you also don't want to, be content with that. Right? There should be something more we should try to achieve. And the Buddha is someone who achieved that, and he gave us this chance to achieve the same. He made the path available to us, and he made the path shorter for us. So we don't have to go through all the struggle that he had to go through, because he didn't know anyone who could show him the way. He had to find it for himself. Now we have teachers. We have the Sambuddhasasana, we have the Mahasangha. So I invite you all, on your own pace, at your own speed, to take step by step. And I can do the steps for you. None of the others can take the steps for you. I can sit here and I can give you some advice, and can give you some things you might like to consider doing in your life, thinking about, reflecting about in your lives. But whether you do that or not, I don't know. You must ultimately do it if you want to get the results of this path. I will try to every week that I'm able to sit here, that I'm asked to sit here, or that the situation is so, I will try my best to share whatever I think is important for you to take the next few steps, and then you try to take it. And little by little, you should see the destination, and you should feel the destination. It's not that you feel it at the end of the journey, you feel it as you walk along the journey. That's what happened to me. So I can't really express the value of our human lives in words, the value of this present situation where this teaching still exists, and the people who understand this teaching still exists. Now I can't prove to you that this is the case, but I still ask you to always bear in mind the shortness of your life and the very rare opportunity you have to make a change. A very profound change for your own good and for the good of others. That is something most people never realize. Most people that I see, they never realize that this world is not, this life is not meant to be just a life where you go out and have fun, and maybe you have a family and then you die. I mean, that's good, and there's nothing wrong with that. But that shouldn't be everything, because I believe we have done this plenty of times. Plenty of times we had these same things. So the vipaka, the energy, or the society and everything around us has been prepared for us to repeat the same pattern over and over again. The same things. That's why when teenagers grow up, most of the advice that they will get is study, find a nice girl or boy and marry, and then there's always a plan prepared from the point of society or from the point of the world. But that's a trap. That's a trap. Very, very, very. It seems so nice, but it looks good on the surface, but it's a very deadly trap. Not because anyone is to blame for that, okay? We'll learn this. So much of our life depends on our views. Views are what make us see the world. So whoever you associate for a while, what you're really associating is not that person, but you're associating a bunch of views. As I said, we really associate ultimately a body, but the body can't really give you, what can you associate when you associate a body? Something hot, something cold, and that's maybe more or less it. Mostly what we associate is what comes out of the body, that means the words and the actions, and they are always a result of a mental process. The mental process which is running based on views, right? So somebody might come to us and say, hey, I saw this really nice thing and I want to buy that, or I want to go out and explore that. Then what we are really associating is a view, right? The view that this is something that's there's something nice there, you should try that. That will be the way you can find happiness, maybe. So we need to see our mind is like a soup, and so many ingredients have been put into this from all kind of sides. All the people that you associate will put something into your mind, some kind of views, some kind of ways you should see the world, and sometimes knowing or unknowingly you will start seeing the world according to that, and it might be right and it might be wrong. So you need to be really mindful about this part as well. Who do you spend your time with, and how much, and how does that help you, and how does that help that person? Even sometimes, because if that person drags you down, how can you help anyone? That person, or whoever it is. If it is someone that you have a responsibility for, you might not have a chance to escape from that. I understand that. But if you have a chance, if it's not something when you are duty bound, you must reflect. You must always reflect. What is my role in here? Because the moment that you drown, you are helpless. You are useless to anyone else, and you yourself also. You're useless to yourself as well as anyone else. That's why in this Dhamma, in this practice, our understanding of love is very different from the understanding that many people have about love. Because normally love means, for most people, there's someone and you love that person. Or it's like, how to explain? I mean, even when you're talking about helping, many people help and they like to help. When I was in Myanmar for 2 years, I saw many people who did a lot of good deeds, merits, volunteering there. They were washing all patients. So patient washing was some of the things we did there, and so much welfare activities, maybe rehabilitation, all very nice things. Cooking for community, things like that. And as much good as it was, because we didn't have the Dhamma at this time, this kind of helping is also something we do out of some kind of selfish intentions. So, because it's building an identity, or sometimes we suppress certain emotions, or so we can feel good about ourselves, or in a certain way. So people do that sometimes not to feel the darkness that's within them, right? It makes you forget the darkness within, or the problems that you have, by helping. Sometimes people find a relationship, and by caring for that person, they can forget themselves and their feelings. But ultimately, you cannot solve these problems just like that. No one else can solve your own problems, and forgetting is not the answer. You have to face them and come out of them. That is how you have to do that. And without facing our own inner demons, you are actually you are useless to anyone else. Because then you're not really loving that person, but you're doing whatever you're doing to that person to come out of your own inner demons. So that is instrumentalization. It means that person is an instrument that you use for you means, I'm not saying you, but I'm saying somebody uses for the purpose of getting rid of their own internal problems, right? Most of the times that is what people do, and that's what I also used to do. Actually, patient washing, and in that time, wasn't just washing patients, as good as it was, but it gives a chance to come out of some kind of vexation for the one doing it. And that's why it was done, right? So there's always these two, what and why. What is patient washing, and why? There might be many whys. So we are trying to focus on this, and we don't really want to care about this, right? This might or might not change what you do, how you live, with whom you interact, the people around you, and so on. That might or might not change, but this is something the Dhamma can address, why we do things. Today also, I would encourage everyone to do the merits, whatever the merits that you can do. Even patient washing, that's a good thing, because you could say there are some people who, when they feel inner demons, they hurt others. So that's worse. At least they're doing good by washing a patient, by washing someone, by helping someone. But Dhamma can help us and elevate us from there to another level, to the level where we don't feel any more vexation. That should be our goal. So, when you can do that, then that's what we call doing good without expectations. So last week, we had touched upon the point, vexation. So do you have an idea what vexation is now? Maybe can you? Because I have used the word today, and I used some examples last time. I said vexation is something like waiting in front of the traffic light when it is red and you have to go to work. Or waiting for somebody at the airport, if somebody we anticipate should come back from somewhere, then we wait for that person. Waiting for the parcel that we have ordered online. Like when you order a pizza online, that's something we used to do in Germany. You order your delivery. So after you order the food, whatever you have ordered, then there's usually a feeling that we have. So because that's the feeling of waiting. Feeling of waiting. For example, you are sitting at the table, everybody is there, family is there, the food that everybody has ordered is on the plate, but one of our, maybe our brother or someone, he's still in the washroom, and he just doesn't seem to come out of there. Right? It's already 5 minutes gone, 10 minutes gone, and he doesn't come out. So what's the feeling at that moment? Vexation. Oh, why is he not coming out? I want to start eating this, whatever, dish in front of me. So it is a kind of a pressure. We have discussed last time also a little bit about why this pressure arises. So normally what we think, as strange as it is, when you're sitting in front of when you're standing at the traffic light and the traffic light is red, what do we feel where the vexation comes from? Or why do we feel that we feel this feeling? What makes us feel this feeling? What makes us feel this feeling? We always feel waiting is what makes us feel. It is, let's say it's maybe the traffic light which makes us feel. The red traffic light is what vexes me. Or when I see the pizza in front of me or the food, any kind of, whatever the thing that I see, I feel it is waiting for that which stresses me. So it's the waiting which gives me vexation. Waiting is the cause of my vexation. Right? So I'll write this down. That is what we usually think. I have to wait for the traffic light to go green, that's why I'm vexed. I have to wait for the pizza to start eating the pizza or something like that, that's why I'm vexed. So it's waiting which is uncomfortable, right? Now we can make an experiment. Let's say we change the food on the table, the food on your plate. We change that. Imagine it is something you really like, and you have to wait until you can start it. How do you feel in that moment? Vexed. We call it vexed. Huh? Vexed. Now imagine you would have another food on the table, but that food is something that you actually don't like that much. Now how do you feel in that moment? The same vexation? No, not the same vexation. Actually, now you have to see there are two parts. If you are hungry, that part you will still have, right? That part doesn't change. But there's another part which is you like to eat and experience the taste of it, right? That might change. For example, let's forget about the hunger part for a moment. Let's say you have eaten the main meal, the main dish has been consumed. Now it's about the dessert. Now you have a dessert in front of you, but that is something you really don't like. And versus, it is something you really like. I don't know, maybe you like ice cream, or maybe you like chocolate or chocolate cake or something like that. So imagine these two situations. So there's no hunger, right? Your body doesn't feel hungry. Your body is actually fulfilled in this moment. But your mind has a kind of a wish or a wanting to experience the taste of, maybe if you like chocolate, maybe for that you would feel vexation. Waiting to finally start eating that chocolate, you might feel vexation. But if it is something else, maybe molten cheese, some people might not like that, I don't know. So then how would you still, or let's say I'll give you something more of the main dish. If you're no longer hungry and now you had your main meal, something more of that, you might say, no, that's I don't fancy that taste anymore. I had enough of that, right? So is there any vexation? No. But you still have to wait, right? You're still waiting to start. Maybe if that person is in the washroom, aren't you waiting at this moment? But just because you're waiting, are you vexed? Not necessarily, right? So can you say that waiting causes vexation? No, not necessarily. Actually, we have to say this a different way. It is not waiting, it is waiting for something that we like, okay, which causes vexation. That would be a better way to say. If there's something that we like and we need to wait for that, because what happens in our mind at this time is wanting. Wanting happens. An expectation is there. An expectation is there, and this expectation is what causes vexation. Right? So, if we don't like something, do you have any wanting to experience that? No, right? There are three kinds of things in this world. These are the three kinds. There are things that we like, or better to say, there's something that the mind at that moment fancies or likes, and there's things that we don't like, and then there's things we either don't know anything about, or we don't really like them, nor do we really not like them. Yeah. These are the three kinds of things. So, things for which there's a liking, there will always be some sort of an attraction towards them, right? I mean, an attraction means a longing for that, or a wanting for that, or an expectation for that. So these are all synonymous. So now I wrote things we like. Actually, I'm a little bit wrong in this aspect, because now you might think I'm talking about things. Here I'm talking not about the thing, I'm talking about liking, the liking of it, not the thing, right? So this is actually what we call a view. It is liking something. That is something like an attitude, you could say. That is something like an opinion that the mind holds. It has nothing to do with the object, right? Can you distinguish between the object and an opinion? For example, should it be allowed to, when you walk with your dog in the park, that should you have to pick up the litter, the dog poo, should you have to pick it up or not? Now, there are different people who can have different opinions about that. That's what I'm talking here, right? So about chocolate, don't people have different opinions? Yes. Some people have the opinion it's great. That's one opinion. And people have the opinion it's not great. That's another opinion. These are opinions. Where does the chocolate exist? In my mind or in the outside world? In the outside world, right? Where does the opinion exist? Within the mind, right? So, if I show you a chocolate now, there's one chocolate here, and every one of us has different opinions. So, in each of every one of us, maybe in some of your minds, it might be in this category. In some other, it might be in this category. In some other, it might be in this category. Maybe somebody who comes from a jungle, he has never seen that. He doesn't even know how it tastes and anything like that. And he might not have any kind of attraction towards that. So therefore, this is the difference. But what we can say is that for the things which in our mind, or in the mind that we have, which are in this category, this effect is also, or that means attraction, longing, expectation, fondness, is an inevitable consequence. Right? So can you see? It's something like, this is one of the causes, and this is an effect. The wanting of something, can you have a liking for something? That means a kind of a fondness, the opinion that it is something good. Can you have the opinion about something being good without the wanting to experience it? No. Can you remove the wanting to experience it, but keep the fondness of it? In other words, can you remove the effect by keeping the causes? No, you can't do that, right? Because that is an inevitable result from the causes which are there. So, therefore, what the Buddha tried to help us with is, so how do these sermons can change your lives? Well, it is because of these views that we have, certain feelings, good feelings, bad feelings arise. So when we're talking about unhappiness and suffering, vexation that we feel, they arise actually within us because of views. So when we are listening to the Dhamma, the only thing that I can do is I can give you views. I can't really do anything about the vexation that's there in your mind. And I don't need to do that. Because this is the thing. What if this view changes? Let's imagine the view changes. We went from liking something to liking something means seeing a high value in it. For example, let's imagine there's maybe some kind of technical device, maybe a phone or some kind of person that we met. And on the first look, when we met that person, he's so kind to us. Maybe when I used to be in university, sometimes I would walk down the street and there would be a man who would come to me and he would talk to me and be so nice. Hey, how are you? And are you doing fine? And can I talk with you for a moment? So he used to be very polite. But this was the first impression. But then I knew that, well, he just wants to sell me kind of because we were all students, so he knew that we all have rich parents or something like that, or parents who are well off. So he knew that we might want to save up money for later having a kind of a flat, an apartment or a house. So he wanted to have a deal, to have a deal with us. So he was like from these a broker, let's say, something like a broker. So of course the reason why he associated me because he wanted to make a deal in the end. So nothing wrong with that. He was not evil or anything like that. But of course the kindness was only superficial. So imagine a situation where there's someone that at first we like, but then we come to know by someone that's not the reality about this thing. For example, imagine, I remember this example my teacher gave once, and it really struck with me very deeply to understand what I'm trying to say in here. So imagine there's a boy, a teenage boy, and he's really in love with a girl. He likes her a lot. And whenever he meets her, he feels so happy and she's so kind to him. If you don't like this example, you can swap the genders, right? It's totally not more important. So she's so kind to him, and he really feels she cares about me and she's so faithful to me, or she has only good feelings about me. That's what he feels when he's with her. But when he goes home to his family, and when he tells it to his parents, the dad or the mother, let's say the dad, he knows that girl from other reasons. Maybe he knows their parents, and he knows that, or he has seen that girl in other situations, maybe also holding hands with another boy. So this is what the father knows. So what the father does now is he goes and he collects evidence. So imagine before collecting evidence, he would come to the boy and say, "My dear son, she's not good for you. Associating her will not be good for you because she will hurt you someday, and she's not honest in her way. You should not trust her." Right? Would he believe him in this moment in time? He would never believe, because he feels so happy with her and all he sees is she's so good to me. So he just wants to destroy my fun, take the fun from me. So I don't believe you. So he would he would never believe because he doesn't feel that. But now imagine the father comes and he collects evidence. So he takes pictures, seeing that girl holding hands with another boy, and he takes a recording maybe with the voice recorder just to prove the point that she's not what it seems to be. So now he comes to his son and shows him the evidence. So now there's a critical moment that something happens in his mind, in the son's mind. Until this point, what is the situation? He has the view that this girl is good for me, she's honest, and she really cares about me, and therefore good. And therefore he has a longing. So maybe right now he's expecting to meet her at the weekend. So now today is Tuesday, and he thinks, if I can see her on Friday, we can go out, hold hands, walk in the park, something like that. So, because he thinks she's good to me, he's longing to see her again. So it's Tuesday right now, right? So he's longing for her based on this view. Now the father comes on Tuesday and he shows him some pictures. So what happens now? Now he realizes that what I thought about her is not completely true. I mean, maybe he doesn't accept it at the beginning, and he will fight and he will argue and he will say, I don't believe you. What you just said is, I can't accept that. You made this up. But point by point by point, when the father can definitely prove you have not seen the reality about her, wouldn't he have to accept it someday? Yes, he has to accept. And the moment he accepts and he comes to realize that she was not what I used to think, this has changed, right? The view has changed. Now, does he have to do anything about this? Can he still have a longing to meet her on Friday? Would he still want to meet her on Friday, given the information he has at this moment? No, right? So that means, when this changes, this also changes. And this can only be there as long as this is there. And on the other hand, you can't remove this as long as this is there, right? This is very important. This is a lesson in actually cause and effect. We're going to get a better feeling more and more sermon by sermon, but you see, once one of the causes is removed, do you need to do anything about this? Can you keep this while this is gone? Can you keep having a longing to see her while there's no view that she's actually good to you? Or, in this situation, can't do. Even you try hard, you can't do, right? Maybe let's say there was a case in Germany a few years ago, when you go to the supermarket, you buy lasagna. And this lasagna, it was written, is made from beef. So that means from beef. Yeah? Then someday so people like to buy that. Now someday there was a news, this and this manufacturer, he actually didn't use beef, he used horses. Right? So can you still go to the supermarket having that information? Wanting to buy this? No, the longing is gone. Because given that information you have, it does not manifest, right? So you see the incredible power of views in our lives. Views have a lot to do with what we want, what we don't want, why we feel the way we feel. And views can be wrong or right? For example, in this case, couldn't a journalist or somebody with evil intentions just fraud or just create a fake story about there is horse meat in the lasagna? Yes. But what happens to people when they listen to this news? mostly we blindly accept the view whether it is true or not. Therefore, whether it is true or not, the lasagna will no longer be able to be sold. Because now people have a doubt, or at least people have a doubt. And so when the view changes, that longing changes. Right? So our mind has this tendency to accept views so blindly. That is something, a very, a big weakness our mind has. And that is something that you can be abused or exploited very easily if you don't take responsibility for reflecting on the views which you are holding. And then you must take responsibility for the views that you're holding, so that you can remove the views or work on the views which are actually totally based on false premises, right? So the Dhamma here, the idea is, all we are going to do is talking about the basics of our, the basic assumptions of our life. Means the way we understand the world, the way we understand ourselves, the way we understand others and reality. And we understand, by understanding that, by understanding about anicca, dukkha, anatta, what happens is views change. When views change, this thing, we don't have to do anything about that, right? That's why when the Buddha gave a sermon, after that sermon, some people, when they become Sotapanna, Sakadagami, Anagami, Arahant, the desires started to be gone. Actually, desires and angers and something, these are not things which exist within us, and the Buddha comes and polishes them off, right? Because they don't exist within us somewhere so that you need to remove them. They happen based on a given situation, based on given environment, there must be a trigger. Like, do you feel desire right now? I mean, mostly I don't think so. But aren't there situations in your life where you might feel some sort of a desire, at least for eating that chocolate cake or something like that? Yes, right. So that you see, desire is not always with you. So if I were to look and inspect, where can I find desire within you, will I ever be able to find that? No, because it's not something that's somewhere within you, but it happens given a certain trigger, given certain views, and so on. So I can't remove desire from your mind, and not even the Buddha could do that. But he can change the environment of your mind, or the environment, the views that you are holding about the world, by explaining you the world. He can give you a view. The view is anicca, dukkha, and anatta. And when your mind accepts that view, or realizes, or grasps that view, now your mind has an environment in which desire no longer happens. And that's it. So these are very important examples to make us understand this nature of things being a process. This is a very deep topic. I don't want to overwhelm you with this. I really don't want to, so I'm keeping it as simple as possible. But I hope you can understand this example. Can you find desire within you right now? No, you can't find it, neither in your body nor anywhere in your mind such a feeling exists. But does it mean that you will never ever be able to feel that? No. A different trigger, like let's say right now, this is the experience. This is the experience that gets being produced for you, and based on your views, a certain samadhi level will be present. But if you change the outside influence, depending on the views that you have, if I show you a piece of cake and there's a view, this is something good, what will happen? Can you stop this then? If these come together, if there's something that you like and I show this to you, can you stop the wanting for that, you can't do that. That's why it's not useful, and you shouldn't even think that you can stop wanting something just like that. So don't blame yourself when you feel attraction towards something, when something is shown to you, and then you think to yourself, I shouldn't feel like that. That's not good, because you can't do anything about this once these things happen. Once the causes are there, you can't stop this to happen. It will happen. That's something you need to understand. That is important, because then you don't feel that you wouldn't blame yourself for having done that, because you haven't. It has happened because of this, not because of you. Maybe, is that too deep? I don't know. I hope it's not. Anyway, just take whatever you get from this. Huh? So, but I wanted to definitely make sure you understand this point, that views, our mind likes to accept views, no matter they are right or wrong. It can happen, as well as views affect the way we feel about the world. That's why wherever in society, different groups have so different views. That's how society, or groups in society, actually, that's how they form. Views keep people together, isn't it? The moment that somebody's views change, the people that he associates very much changes. The things he likes or he's associating very much changes. So views are everything about us is ultimately views, right? When you're talking about your friend or somebody, what will you say about him? This is my friend Tom. He likes to go off to play badminton, and he likes to watch sports, and he doesn't like this. And he's a kind person, or he's an angry person. So it's ultimately always about the views. The views make this mind. So the differences between you and another person, between you and me, between each other, is mostly that. Views. Nothing more. Otherwise our minds are all the same. Actually, it's not... It's like this. Yesterday, I was discussing with some people in Germany online, and usually people say a German person, when he goes to Oktoberfest, and Germans like beer. Okay, that's a stereotype. Germans like beer. So I was asking these people. Now imagine a German goes to Oktoberfest, but there's no beer anymore. The beer's run out in that Oktoberfest. So everything is empty. So I asked them, how will he feel? So how is our initial answer? He'll be vexed, right? Because Germans like beer, so surely he will not like that, because he came there for the beer. So we feel that something about, so a German person, that means this mind is a German mind, let's say, German mind. So because we feel there's a German mind, there's Sri Lankan mind, mind of a man, mind of a woman, mind of a Buddhist, mind of a this, mind of a that, mind of an animal, and this is what we feel. So when I ask you the question, a German, what does he feel when there's no beer, when he's going to Oktoberfest? Yeah, of course he will not like it. But now I ask you this question. Imagine there's a German, but he doesn't like beer. I'm not saying he hates it, I'm just saying maybe this category, right? Or maybe, yeah, something like that. Now he comes to Oktoberfest. What will he feel when he gets the news? Or maybe a kid. Isn't a kid also German? Yes, right? Let's say a German kid comes to Oktoberfest, but he's not there for the beer, but he's there for the toys, for the carousel, for the sweets. So now he gets the news, there's no more beer. What he will feel? I don't care. I want the sweets. So, but even an adult, if he doesn't have a like, I mean, aren't there Germans who might not be fond of drinking beer? Yes, of course, happens. So this person, will he be vexed that when there's no beer there? No. So we can say a German who likes to have beer will be vexed. A German who really doesn't like beer, he might be happy. He says, yeah, anyways, I don't like these people doing this, what a nonsense. So finally this thing has finally stopped. So he'll be happy. A person who has no liking or disliking, he will say, yeah, okay, it doesn't matter to me. And a French person who comes to Oktoberfest, well, if he likes beer, he will be sad. If he doesn't like beer, he'll be happy, and if he's neutral, he doesn't care. So the same thing, right? No difference. So you see, the Germanness or the Frenchness has absolutely no effect whatsoever on anything. Because the only thing which had any effect was simply the view that is there. Similarly, we can't really say there are men and women in this world, because the only difference between when we say this is the mind is the mind. The only difference is the view, right? It is because of views. Certain minds like to do these things, like to do these activities, and they don't like to do these activities. It's not because this is a woman, this is a man, that it happens. The man or the womanness has nothing to do with it, because actually the mind, it doesn't exist in the mind. It doesn't exist in the mind at all. Okay? These are always our very superficial views or superficial feelings about the situation. Mind is a mind is a mind. If you give it these views, it will feel this thing. If you give it these views, it will feel this thing. That's how it works. Right? So that means, I don't know whether this is too abstract. That's fine, because we will go through or also go over this many, many times. But I said before, at the beginning, I said, when you go through life and when you see people around you and at work, at home, try to see how this is something where there's a mind process which has certain, I don't know, this is the second sermon I'm talking about the mind. But anyways, try to see the impact of views on the views which are there within your mind, and see how you might see people who like certain things and others not. So you see how the difference between them is the views that are being held in that mind. It will help you a lot. Why? Because now you will understand. One of the things my teacher taught me is, whenever you see some people do things, our mind is very quick to feel he's doing it wrongly. He should do it this way. Because this is how our mind, based on our views, judges this behavior. Right? But do you think that person has the same views than you? Might not. He might not at all. So likewise, try to see that the reason why he does it differently, the reason why the action happens differently here is because of the views which are present in that mind. And then again, the actions are totally a result of the views. Given the views, you have nothing, you can't do anything about the actions. Right? It can't be done. The actions are always a result of the views. So whatever you see, maybe your children, maybe just anyone around you, the actions that they do are always based on certain views. So as long as you don't work on these views, the actions will continue. You can't just say stop doing that, because then you're trying to address the what, right? Before that we had what and why. So you're trying to address the what. But what you should rather be addressing is not the what. What is my child doing? He's doing this. Or, for example, when I was a teenager, many of my friends, including myself, we like to play computer games. And then something that our parents try to do is they try to stop us from playing computer games. So that means they try to address the what. They said, don't do this. Only 2 hours a day, only 1 hour a day, only once a week, only this and that. Now, to be honest, it never worked. Because, at least I can talk about my brother and me, we were very creative tricksters. We found ways to go beyond that very easily. And we learned a lot about technology and how to not good things that we did, but not very bad also, but not good. But we were very creative, because as long as our view was this computer playing is so nice and we enjoy that, and what's the problem with that? So as long as this was there, at least the vexation, this longing, this fondness, this attraction for playing was so much there, and the vexation was so much there. So we always found a way to get us to play that, and we had so many ways to go beyond the punishment, or not the punishment, but the restrictions that had been given us. But then I can say the only thing that really helped me come out of this playing computer games is the Dhamma, actually, because what it did is it changed this. So I listened to some videos on YouTube and listened to the Dhamma and listened to my teachers. Now suddenly I didn't have to do anything about this. Suddenly it was gone, or at least little by little it went away, as more as I understood, right? And now I don't miss it. That I can't, as a monk, I can't play computer games, right? Far away, I shouldn't, and I don't want to. I don't say it's bad, also. I'm not saying most of the games don't really help. So if you have children who do, mostly the way of thinking that is conditioning your mind, your children's mind is not something beneficial. So that is true. That's another story for another day. But I'm not saying it's not necessarily something bad inherently. The game is not the problem. The way that our thinking happens is the problem. Right? This is the thing with everything, with the internet as well. Internet is not the problem, but the way people use it is the problem, right? So when you have people around you, don't focus on what they are doing, but try to understand why are they doing it. Then you will understand what are the views, the opinions that are there in that mind. And as long as they are there, you can't change the behaviors. So either you give a good reason why it shouldn't be done. So that's what you also should do, in my opinion, if you ask me, with your children, if you have any, or with anyone that you have to deal with. It doesn't have to be children, even everyone else. If you want them to change, you need to give them you need to give them a good reason why, about the why, right? So if somebody would have explained me the problem with playing computer games, then I have a why I shouldn't do, why I should do something else. That means different view, and then whether I like it or not, I don't have to get rid of my fondness, attraction towards games. It goes away automatically, because this is not something fixed, because this is a effect from these causes. When one of the causes is not there, the effect also no longer happens. Right? You don't have to get rid of this, because once that is gone, that also goes. And you can try to get rid of this without tackling this. That's like trying to extinguish a fire, but without removing the, to extinguish a fire, there are three things you can do. Either you remove the, let's say, the fuel, or you stop the air from flowing in, or you stop the heat. So therefore you can, for example, when you're pouring water into there, what you're doing essentially is you're taking the heat away. So that's something you can do. So you can remove one of these three things: the fuel, the oxygen, or the heat. But just by standing on there and saying, fire, go out, go out, go out, just by trying to change the fire without doing anything about this, how long can you do that? How long do you need? It has nothing to do with time. It has nothing to do with how long you do it. It will never work, because when this is there, this also will be there. So, practically speaking here, this means your expectations and your wantings and your desires and whatever these feelings are there, you can't get rid of them just by saying, please go away, and that's not the way. And you also don't have to take blame for these things, for feeling like that, because these are the result of causes. Now, all we can do, all we should really do is work on the causes itself. How to do that? Because when you get rid of vexation, desires, aversion, delusions, all of this is Nibbāna, right? Nibbāna means Rāga-kayo, Dvesha-kayo, Moha-kayo. So get rid of these three effects by getting rid of the causes. So how can we do that? We need to acquire wisdom, getting the right view of anicca, dukkha and anatta. Therefore, how can we do that? We need to listen to the Dhamma and get the right views, associate noble people, and acquire these noble views. Noble means that is supramundane. Supramundane, this is the thing that the Buddha has found. This is the view which happened when he became enlightened. And this is the views he gave us. Now we need to take these views by associating people who have these views, or not people, minds, right? So that is something hard to do, because we never know who has that, and you can't see that from outside. So don't be tricked by that as well. That's another story for another day. But you can do. We need to associate these views, and how can we do that? Merits will guide us to the right place. Merits for Nibbāna, merits for the truth, merits for salvation, merits for freeing us from suffering, merits for unconditional happiness, and merits for this mission of selflessness as another way to think about. These merits will guide you, these merits will pave the path. And for the merits we need the attitudes, the virtues which we talked about today as well. These are the way. So therefore, listening to the sermon is what gives you the views. Not just this sermon. You can listen to, try to find, sometimes you might resonate with certain people, not with others, but it's not whether you personally resonate or not, it's about whether he's speaking, whether this mind or this person can help you to realize for yourself something more and more about Dhamma, or the truth. That's what you should deal with. You should always be truthful. It should not be just because I like him, because he says what I like. That's not what it should be. It should be about the truth ultimately. Then getting the views and merits helps you to get to the right people, right? So last thing, on my limited journey that I have gone in this life, in the last few years and so on, the place where I ended up so far, where I am right now, all because of the merits. Sometimes I came to Myanmar and I wanted to find somebody who could teach me. Then I didn't know where to go, I had no one to do. So what happened was life happened. I went to the hostel and talked to people, and then someone said, if you want to do something about meditation, this and that, I would recommend you this place. So it was all vipaka, that means it's all down to merits. And then ultimately for me to find the monastery where I was in, all down to merits. So I'm not saying there might be a better place than that, I can't say that. But I can say that according to my level of merits, that is what I deserve for the moment. If I want to deserve more, I should give more, right? Therefore, what we give is what we get. That's how we progress. So therefore, when now we have to finish the sermon, when we are doing the Buddha Puja, with these thoughts in mind, we can do merits, and these merits will guide us. Buddha Puja is one way. If you're serving alms, do it to support this noble mission of freeing minds from suffering. That's a global mission, I could say, or it's a very noble mission, and then you will acquire a lot of merit, and it will guide you. Thank you very much. And now we are going to do the merit transfer. So in this long journey of samsara, many people have helped us, and to have this chance in this life, to be alive right now, and have the chance to associate the teaching of the Buddha is extremely rare and extremely precious. Sometimes I also will give more information about that, but some of you might already know. But however, we need to realize the fortunate situation in which we are in, and pay our debts to the ones who have made this possible in this life and in the previous lives. That's what we're doing when we're transferring the merits. Yeah. So, first and foremost, let us transfer all the merits that we have acquired by making offerings to the Noble Triple Gem, by listening to the Dhamma, by bringing the Swaminahansa, laying the Pavada, and offering flowers, betel leaves, and offering alms to the Mahasangha, and all other meritorious deeds that we've done organizing this event. First and foremost, let us transfer all the merits that we have acquired to all the bhikkhus, bhikkhunis, upasikas and upasakas who since time immemorial have protected and preserved the sublime teachings of the Buddha in the form of the Tripitaka, which is thankfully available to us today to study, understand and comprehend the Dhamma. Let's also transfer these merits to all members of the Mahasangha present throughout the world, including the chief prelates of all of the chapters who have dedicated their lives towards the noble path and have committed themselves towards the betterment of all sentient beings. Let us not forget that among them are the monks and nuns resident in your local temples and nunneries who've always been by your side through thick and thin, come rain or shine. Let's also transfer these merits to Guru Swaminahansa as well as all the monks resident at the monastery, as well as the Anagarika and Anagarika attached to the monastery. Let's also transfer these merits and express our gratitude to all those who make great efforts to disseminate the teachings of the Buddha, be that by transliterating these sermons, sharing them out with others, or inviting others to join them. If any of them have been born in the woeful plane, may they redeem themselves and be born in the blissful plane. May they abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble eightfold path, and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbāna. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let's also transfer these merits to our devotees, friends of the monastery, who for the sake of merits continue to sustain the Mahasangha. These can be This can be by providing the Mahasangha with the 4 requisites, shelter, robes, arms and medicines, as well as by extending their well wishes and by sharing their know-how. May through the power of these merits they abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the Noble Eightfold Path, and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbāna. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let's also transfer the merits to everyone who has made this event possible, be that the chairman, Mr. Bandara, Dr. Niroda, and all the staff of the Royal Institute, and everyone from big small things to small things, as well as one worker who died on the spot while working recently. Let us pass on all the merits to them as well, and may through the power of these merits they abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, and if any of them have been born in the woeful plane, may they redeem themselves and be born in the blissful plane, and may they abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the Noble Eightfold Path, and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbāna. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let's also transfer the merits to our mothers and fathers, husbands and wives, brothers and sisters, sons and daughters, grandparents, uncles, aunts, cousins, nephews and nieces, our elders, friends and acquaintances, our employers and employees, to our teachers who have taught us in this life the English language and other things. May through the power of these merits, and everyone who has helped us and supported us, may through the power of these merits they be healed of any physical and mental ailments and overcome any obstacles to their spiritual progress. May they abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the Noble Eightfold Path, and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbāna. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let us also transfer the merits to the Devas and Brahmas, spirits and demons, primarily the Sakadeva, as well as all the numerous gods and deities who are committed to protect and fulfill the Sambhadasasana. Let's also transfer these merits to our guardian deities who keep a watchful eye over us and keep us out of harm's way. May through the power of these merits they prosper in divine power and wisdom. May they abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the Noble Eightfold Path, and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbāna. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let's also transfer these merits to our ancestors, to all those who have predeceased us, to all those who have been family and friends to us in this infinite long journey in samsara. Let's also transfer these merits to all members of the armed forces as well as the police force, who have sacrificed their lives to protect the peace and harmony of our nation. May all those who lost their lives in the war, be they friend or foe, rejoice in the merits that we have acquired today. Let's also transfer these merits to all those who lost their lives in natural calamities such as tsunamis, earthquakes, landslides and pandemics, reminding ourselves that among them will be those who have been family and friends to us in this infinitely long journey in samsara. May through the power of these merits, if any of them have been born in the woeful plane, they redeem themselves and be born in the blissful plane. May they abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the Noble Eightfold Path, and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbāna. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Finally, let us all resolve that may through the power and blessings of all the merits that we have acquired throughout the day, we be able to witness the advent of many hundreds of thousands of Arahants on this blessed land. And finally, let us all resolve that may through the power of all the merits we have acquired today, you and I and everyone who has helped to make this program a success, become Arahant and Arhat Meninohans in this very life itself, and in the era of the Gautama Supreme Buddha itself. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Now the Mahasangha will pass on their blessings to you. Raga ginnin nidetva, dvesha ginnin nidetva, moha ginnin nidetva, Nibbāna parama sukhayin, sukhita tara Nibbāna parama sukhayin, sukhita tara vetva, mamada siyalu loka, siyalu sattvayo, Nibbāna parama sukhayin, sukhita tara vetva, Nibbāna parama sukhayin, sukhita tara vetva. සුඛිතතර වෙත්වා රාගගිනි නිවේවා ද්වේෂගිනි නිවේවා මෝහගිනි නිවේවා නිවන් සැප ලැබේවා නිවන් සැප ලැබේවා නිවන් සැප ලැබේවා තුනුරුවන්ගේ සුවිසි අනන්ත මහා ගුණවලින් සියලු ලෝක සීල සත්වයෝ නිබ්බාන පරම සුඛයෙන් සුඛිතව සාදු සාදු